Hey folks, the MISC Razor is one of the few purpose-built racing ships in the Star Citizen universe. It is strange though that the base model comes fitted with some size 2 guns by default. What does a racing ship need weapons for? Maybe there's some combat involved, so I figure let's go test it out and see how it fares. So let's get into it. So we'll come at this with both laser cannons and laser repeaters, because I'm a glutton for punishment. I've started this video in the middle of a VHRT bounty right before this Valk died, because it was desyncing a lot. I wanted to show that at least the end result was possible. No matter how you slice it, with only 2 size 2 weapons, this is going to take a while. Our strategy is death by 1,000 cuts, and it takes a while to count to 1,000. So next we lock up this Warden here, and we start getting in range. Since I'm using the laser cannons here, and they have a slower projectile speed, I went with the lead pip here, so that my targeting reticule is going to show me where I want to aim my ship in order to land my shots. It's reasonably effective against slower targets, or targets that are not moving around a lot, but it can be pretty challenging when you're getting a lot of desync, because the targeting reticule will jitter and bug all over the place. It wasn't too difficult to take out that Warden because it was slow and we were so agile. So next up, we're in the middle of combat with a Hurricane. Its shields are still up, as you can see on the MFD, so I haven't fast forwarded too much. I'm just trying to minimize the amount of time we're staring at repetitive combat. So we were using laser cannons against a Hurricane, and this is the argument for using repeaters in basically all of your bounties, because the hardest ship that you're going to end up coming against is the Hurricane, and repeaters were going to greatly outperform cannons in most situations. I'm doing an okay job of landing my shots because I am so agile. I'm not doing a great job of actually preventing its jousting. I am keeping the target in front of me, but you can see I keep having to yaw left and right to try and keep it within my sights. The Razor is one of the most agile ships in the game. Since it's a purpose-built racer, it's got excellent speed and agility, and it's a pretty small target as well. We're actually smaller than the Arrow in every dimension, and we're more nimble than it. We have a little bit more hull than it as well. But it does have like twice the firepower that we do, and that's the point at the end of the day. We're a racer, not a fighter. But we're proving here that, you know, if you have a Razor and you feel like poking some bad guys to death, you can, you know, for fun. We've had a lot of time now where we've kind of kept him in front of us and we've been chipping away at him, so he should be getting pretty close to the end here. And if you pay super close attention to the target MFD, you can see when he stops flashing that his hull is in the red. So we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, try to do our best to keep him in front of us. There I did the tactic that is best used in ships, which is to rotate so that you're using your bottom thrusters to use pitch to track him rather than yaw. I haven't really been doing that for most of the fight because we're so agile, but that is the best practice. And now we'll swap over to the laser repeaters. So I've started this video in the middle of combat with the Hurricane because I wanted to show how we're actually in a 1v3 situation against 2 Hurricanes and a Warden. It goes to show how capable a ship can be if it's a small target and really agile, and you as the pilot are really on top of your piloting and swapping your capacitor back and forth from weapons to shields and whatnot. So we lock up the other 2 targets. You saw that first one was a Hurricane. Instead we go for the Warden first because it's the easier target. So what we want to do here is we want to remove as much of the enemy DPS off the field as possible, and the Warden is a pretty fast target to take out. So here we're using our lag pip now so that we can better land our repeater shots. Since repeaters have a much faster projectile speed than cannons, you can more accurately use the lag pip because it shows you where your shots are gonna go, and putting that on top of where the ship currently is usually okay because at the range you're fighting in, your shots are usually landing in 1 second or less. You can see that we're being pretty active with our piloting and our power management. We're trying to do what we can to keep our shields up, but also keep power to our weapons as much as possible to keep the damage on, while also doing our best to strafe around him and really avoid being in front of him where he can hit us with that dangerous nose weapon that he's got on the Vanguard. Before long, we're able to take him out, and now we're left with the last challenge, which is, you know, again, the Hurricane. since we had lost a bunch of shield, we have our capacitor back to shield to try and regain as much of it back, but then I make a small mistake here. I've capped out my shield, but I've forgotten to put my capacitor back to weapons to keep my ammo recharging, and so I run dry and it's not recharging. So this is a wasted opportunity, and that's really bad because I'm giving the Hurricane time to recharge his shields. Anytime you don't take damage for 5 seconds, you basically get out of the window where your shields can now start recharging again. So if you don't do any damage to the enemy for 5 seconds, they're likely to start recharging their shields. So you want to try to keep some pressure on at least every 5 seconds to prevent that from happening, and I didn't let that happen right there. There, to do a little bit better of a job to avoid the damage, I did another corkscrew. Fortunately didn't take any real damage. Same thing here, and we're just going to keep doing that. We're going to do our best to strafe and rotate around him to keep it in our sights, and also to corkscrew anytime we think that we might be taking any damage from him, so anytime he's facing us. We also have to be a little bit wary of that top turret that he's got. He's very dangerous. He can put out a lot of damage, and basically the entire top side of him is covered by that turret as well. So ideally we get behind him or underneath him, but didn't do a great job of piloting here. But that's actually okay. Sometimes you can choose to just instead trade blows back and forth. If your ship is more tanky or has more damage, that's obviously a fine situation to do that in. In our situation, that's not really what we want to be doing, so anytime we do that, we really just prolong combat, but as you can see, it still does fine and we're able to take him out. So yeah, the MISC Razor is totally capable of doing VHRT bounties, and I'll flash the cannon and repeater fits on the screen and link them in the description, but I honestly don't recommend using this ship for VHRT bounties. It doesn't have enough DPS and it's pretty expensive. So this is more of a fun change of pace than anything else, and for that, I think it's totally fine. And, you know, random side note, I actually think it looks absolutely fantastic. So yeah, that's all for the MISC Razor. I hope you folks have liked this. Cheers.